particular CI, the breeder documents for one to be considered for registration to vote when you become eligible have been spelled out. And those breeder documents includes the passport, the driver's license, the existing voter ID card, and there is a fourth document that has escaped my mind. I think the passport and of course the NHIA card. Now, following the passage of the said CI, Duke, you would recall Abu Ramadan went to the Supreme Court and actually brought suit and challenged the constitutionality of the inclusion of the NHIA card as a base document, or if you like, a breeder document for registration for purposes of voting. Now, the Supreme Court in the Abu Ramadan case actually held that the inclusion of the NHIA card did not pass the constitutionality test spelled out under Article 42, which requires that one, you must be a citizen of Ghana, you must be of sound mind, and be up to the age of majority, which is 18 years. That is what Article 42 says. So the consequential order then was that the EC should expunge from the register the names of those who had registered on the basis of their possession of the NHIA card, and that after the deletion of their names, they should be given the opportunity to reapply and be registered. This particular consequential order of the Supreme Court was complied with. Absolutely. Okay. And so that is the background to the amendment that was recently brought. Now, in the course of time, the EC decided that, look, they were going to discard the existing voters register and to compile a new register. Now, to do that, they needed to bring before Parliament a new CI to amend the existing CI. That particular CI then was the CI 126. Now, it is important, Duke, to note that under the CI 126, the breeder documents for registration was limited. In other words, the existing voter ID card, which had been upheld as an identification card which passed the constitutional test in the Abu Ramadan case, was excluded from this particular CI. So this CI, in effect, the CI 126, limits the breeder documents to a passport, the NHIA card, and two completed guarantee forms. So you need two people to guarantee for you if you cannot produce the NHIA card and the Ghana passport. So that was what ignited the controversy before the House. The minority felt that, look, the decision to take out the existing voter ID card was going to disenfranchise several Ghanaians. Why? Because the NHIA card is work in progress. As we speak, Duke, the records of the NHIA itself, of course, they've started with some mop-up exercise, but before the commencement of the mop-up exercise, they themselves had said that they had been able to register just a little over 10 million. But in actual fact, those who received the cards after registering was in the region of a little over 6 million. And yet, the last time we went to the polls, the voter population of this country was up to 80 million. So clearly, any attempt to use the Ghana card, which is work in progress, is going to pose a lot of challenges for us.
Okay.
So
it is based on that misunderstanding that the legal team of the NDC then decided to go to court to challenge.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes, because we couldn't garner enough votes to nullify the CI before the House. So the NDC, as a political party, decided to take up the matter to court. And I think the court delivered judgment only yesterday. But the judgment was not too good in terms of its clarity. When I read the orders for the first time, I didn't know what the orders were all about.
Some say that was deliberate. Do you think it was deliberate?
Well, Duke, I will be surprised to hear that our Supreme Court, which is the apex court of the land, would deliberately couch their orders in language that is not easy to comprehend. Because the Supreme Court, remember, is the apex court. It is also the constitutional court of the land. And so when it sets out to interpret provisions of the Constitution, I think that the Supreme Court itself has a duty to reduce their writing, their language, into very simple grammar so that the majority of Ghanaians can understand. Because even lawyers, I'm a lawyer, but when I read the judgment, I was a bit confused. So it took us a lot of time to actually understand what the court was, in fact, talking about. To compound matters, the reasons, the reasoning of the court did not accompany the orders. If the court had actually given its reasoning alongside the orders, at least if we would have been able to easily clear our doubts, because you would read the reasoning behind the orders. That way it is easy to deal with ambiguities and understand the real import of the orders, because the orders flows directly from the reasons that the court canvassed. So that has been the challenge. But on the other hand, if you also consider the fact that the court is saying that they would only now come out with the reasons on the 15th of next month, I think that that arrangement is not too good in my view.
But is that sometimes, don't we have the court deciding as and when they will bring the reasoning to it? Is as you lawyers say, when it comes to the Constitutional Court or the Supreme Court, they can decide as to what they want to do when it comes to the cases that are before them, if I'm not right.
But you see, in a matter that is charged, okay, the atmosphere in our country is tensed. Everybody was sitting on tenterhooks. You're waiting for the Supreme Court to decide in one way or the other, all right, in a very crucial matter such as the one the NDC brought before it. You'd expect that the court itself would endeavor to come out with its reasons, even if the reasons cannot be presented the very day the orders are announced. It shouldn't take a long time for the court to come out with its reasons. The reason is simple. You see, when a court, even the Supreme Court makes its orders, the litigants have the right, under the Supreme Court rules, to apply for a review of the decision of the Supreme Court. If you think that there are exceptional circumstances that warrants an application for review, okay, there are other considerations that would warrant an application for review. I mean, you need to know what the reasons are to be able to come to that conclusion. As it stands now, the EC is scheduled to begin the compilation of the new voters register, I think 4 days from now. But we are told the reasons will be out in 15 days' time. What does that mean? It means that the EC, assuming the NDC had the intention of pursuing a review before the Supreme Court, by the time the review application is filed, the EC would have gone far. And of what use would the review application now be? So I think that moving forward, the Supreme Court will do well to come out with a practice directive to, as it were, always furnish the public with their reasons when judgments are handed down. It's very important. At least that will cure a lot of the misunderstanding and confusion that was characterized by the delivery of its judgment yesterday. It's absolutely important.
Okay. Today, on the in the foyers of Parliament, you raised an issue about what you term as intimidation or supposed intimidation going on in the Volta region. What exactly is the gravamen of your case?
Yes, well, Duke, this is a matter that is very disturbing. We have received information from the Volta region that there is massive deployment of military assets and personnel along that frontier. So the K2 South and North municipalities have seen the deployment of huge numbers of military personnel. Now you ask yourself, what has accounted for the massive deployment? At least we have been briefed about some deployment on our northern frontier in the wake of the terrorist threats in neighboring Burkina Faso and other neighboring Sahelian countries. So that deployment was done, Operation Concrete Fist. We all know about that deployment. But with our eastern neighbor, the question to ask is, why the deployment? I am told the regional minister indicated that the deployment is to help the COVID-19 teams deal effectively with the spread of COVID-19. We've lifted the lockdown. The lockdown did not even extend beyond Accra. It was limited to Accra, Kumasi, and Kaswa. Now we've eased restrictions, and yet this is the time government has decided to deploy troops along that border. I mean, you don't need to be a soothsayer to know that the motivation for the deployment of those troops is not to deal with COVID-19. In any case, Ghana's COVID-19 cases far exceeds the Togo COVID-19 cases. So if that is anything to go by, why the massive deployment? Because Togo is even safer than Ghana so far as the management COVID-19 is concerned. Why the deployment? So the indication from our people in the Volta region is that the troops deployment is meant to intimidate them and to make it impossible for the teeming numbers, the majority of the people, to come out and vote without fear of being harassed by the military deployment, the elements that have been deployed over there. I think that particular step is counterproductive. It does not augur well for good governance and democracy. The processes leading up to the 2020 elections must be very transparent. There's a lot of opacity with regards to the deployment, like I said. Even Parliament has no clue. That deployment has been stealthy and deserves to be condemned.
So today, this should be the Ministry of Defense's purview, because it's the military.
Well, not necessarily. The military itself would usually, because this is an internal security operation. We are not at war with our neighbors. So it is an internal security arrangement. So this deployment, I know for sure, would be at the behest of the Ministry of the Interior or the Ministry for National Security. Of course, if when it suits them, they rely on the military for superior firepower and of course, to augment the numbers. The point is, why now? Because COVID-19 started way back, as far back as March. Why now? When we're just about to start with the registration exercise. When you do that, then you give us cause to think that you are targeting the people of the Volta region, because the people of the Volta region predominantly are sympathetic to the cause of the largest opposition party. These suspicions are not healthy at all. for the maintenance of the peace and security of our country. Look, the worst thing you can do is to use the security apparatus of a country to oppress the citizenry. It is not done. It's not done. I'm sure you followed the debate in the US, especially when we're talking about internal security arrangements. When Donald Trump suggested that the National Guard be brought in to dominate demonstrators.
George Floyd.
So what happened in the US? So Ghana must begin to learn lessons.
Okay,
what is the nature of the threat,
right,
such that our police cannot be used to deal with the level of threat? So do you want to deploy the military? So we are calling on the government to immediately withdraw the military deployment. We are at peace with our neighbor, Togo. Have you heard of any challenges between Ghana and Togo?
No, nothing recent.
So why?
Okay. Now, but this may not be something that directly affects you, but because it's a matter regarding Parliament and its processes, and it's a matter that many have called for a national conversation on, I would ask you about it. Over the weekend, the majority went for their primaries for most of the seats that they have. That's 169. It took place in 165. Some had their own issues and all of that. But the big story from the primaries was that over 40 of your colleagues in Parliament lost their seats, which has, ignited many issues of whether MPs should concentrate on their constituency services or concentrate on the work that they do. The chairman of your committee that you had also lost his seat, and he will not be coming back to Parliament. It's brought about a lot of issues, debate even about how a political party should be looking at the process of selecting candidates for elections of that sort. First of all, what would be your own impressions and reflections of what happened?
Yes, Duke, I think what happened in the MPP primaries was shocking. As many as 41 or 2 leading MPs of the majority party, the MPP, lost in the primaries, and so there is certainty that those leading members are not going to come back to Parliament after December 2020. As we sit here, I went through the primaries, so at least my party would present me for the 2020 elections. So it's most likely I might come back. Okay, but for them,
most for certain. If you look at the dynamics of our politics.
Well, but for them, it appears we're going to lose the services of the over 40 plus leading members of Parliament, because the overwhelming majority are actually chairman, vice chairman of committees of this House. I think that that is not very healthy for our fledgling democracy, because, as you know, it takes quite some time for members to school themselves properly on the procedures and practices of the House. And so when people over the years become experienced and actually are appointed as leaders of committees, it means that they have gained a lot of experience over the. So if you lose people of that caliber, in actual fact, Parliament as an institution has lost. But having said that, we are also in a democracy where you must create a level playing field for all those who have political ambitions to actualize them by engaging in open contests. That is the only way we can talk about participatory democracy. But one thing that is worrying is that the MPP as a political party actually did not open the floodgates for all their members of Parliament to be contested. So, for instance, the overwhelming number of MPs who are also ministers were not contested. Okay? They were not contested. But those who are mostly chairmen of committees are the ones who were contested. question to ask is, what informed the decision of the party to offer protection for those who are predominantly ministers,
yeah.
but allowed the chairman of committees, who are actually the ones who lead the charge for the conduct of government business, to be contested? That kind of an equal treatment, for me, is very problematic. Now, the ruling party would be licking its wounds, because I don't think that the majority of those who lost because they are non-performing. I know a lot of them, their colleagues. I know what stuff they are made of. But it appears there is actually a certain feeling, all right? People are despondent because of the abysmal performance of government. So normally when people begin to have those feelings, the soft targets they can hit at are the members of parliament. So what happened in the MPP primaries is an opinion poll on the performance of this government. And they need to watch that. Not the MPs, the ruling government, I mean. It's an opinion poll.
Yeah, true.
If they had opened the floodgates, Duke, you'll be shocked. The number of ministers who would also have lost. That is a bad omen for things yet to happen. So they need to quickly return to the drawing board and get their acts together, or say goodbye to power in December 2020. We had the same problem. I'm being very objective here. We went through similar challenges. Now, I think history is beginning to repeat itself. So they need to watch it.
Okay. Parting comments, final words before we end the interview.
Well, Duke, I think that the Supreme Court has spoken. Our main concern has always been that the attempt to exclude Ghanaians from participating in our democracy, there is a real likelihood will not be a pleasant development at all for our fledgling democracy. Look, under Article 45, one of the provisions, the EC, I think 45F, the EC is enjoined to initiate programs to expand the register so that many more people are able to register and vote. But when we begin to have disputes, running battles about breeder documents that are not in the possession of the overwhelming number of Ghanaians, it portends grave danger for our democratic experiment. We need to open up the space and allow Ghanaians, in whom the sovereign will of state is vested, to decide. When they feel you are non-performing, they kick you out. That's the beauty of democracy. I think Ghana has largely been described as an oasis of peace, because in 2000, when we lost power, we handed over peacefully to President Kufuor. When President Kufuor, in 2008, the NPP lost, President Kufuor did well. He handed over power peacefully to Professor Mills. And so, under this particular democratic dispensation, we have not had issues with who is entitled to register and who cannot register. I would recall vividly the happenings in next door Ivory Coast. It had to do with the politics of exclusion. And that ignited trouble for that country. We don't want that to happen in Ghana. I was at the Ministry of the Interior when Ivory Coast went up in flames. I had an unpleasant situation of meeting with some of the refugees who fled the conflict. And I still have the video footage. Anytime I watch it, I weep. I weep. We don't want that to happen in our country. So we need to be very circumspect and cautious. Let's not do things that can mar the peace of our country. Ghana is the only country we have. You see, we are an English-speaking country surrounded by French-speaking countries. I don't speak French. Do you speak French,
No.
Duke?
No, I don't.
We don't wish ourselves any evil, but should something happen in this country, where are you going to? Because you don't communicate in French. You see, in the Francophone countries, a lot of them can speak English. So the group of persons I met, almost all of them could communicate in English. Anytime I travel to next door, Ivory Coast, I find it difficult. They can understand me. So when they choose not to speak with you, you are finished. So we need to protect and preserve our peace.
Okay. Thank you very much. The Honorable James Agaga is Member of Parliament for Busa North, Ranking Member on the Defence and Interior Committee of Parliament, and also former Deputy Minister for Interior. And he's been having a discussion with us on a wide range of issues that have dominated discussions in and around Parliament this week. We'll take a break. When I come back, there is more on the chamber.
There seems to be some sort of conflation here, some misunderstanding of the processes and procedures. I don't understand how the presidency and the electoral commission how they come in here. Somebody must be told that it is the result of the legislation passed by this house. If anything, I thought we should be the first source of attack, because we passed it. I don't quite get it. So Ghanaians shouldn't get deceived. The air with which I say Nkatia came out of the Supreme Court and the magisterial moves, I got the impression that they won, hands down. In English, we have what we call Pyrrhic victory. What they won wasn't even a Pyrrhic victory. It was completely hopeless. They won nothing. Nothing. We are going to have a register, worthy of the name. Your name will be there. Those who have gone away, those who are no longer with us, we're going to clean the register. I, for myself, don't understand the panic about this whole register business. I was depressed on the Saturday afternoon when the results started streaming in, and I was told about my colleagues who had lost and all that. I was depressed. I was upset. Yes, nobody is asking that there shouldn't be democracy, but I don't think that this is democracy. So speaking, we inherited a lot of this from certain sources. The Greeks who started all this democratic experiment, and then now the Western traditions. It's fine, but I'm not sure this is how it's done. I think. And most of the times I cite England as my source of experience. When it comes to this primary season, they don't just throw everybody to the wolves. It's not like in open season, go contest everybody. The constituency party is asked to investigate and sort to investigate background to find out what they feel about a particular candidate who is standing. The National Party always has a say. I'll give you a classic example of what happened in the Labour Party recently. There was anger, all the problems that Labour, if you've been following Labour Party in Britain's fortunes of late. So somebody was going to be an MP. It was a clamor for the person to be removed. But they thought the person was a good material. So there was another pressure on the National Party. You'll be careful about the suggestion that this person be deselected. In the end, leadership had their way. The person was not deselected. You see, so it's not like go in open season, strike down whoever you want to strike down. I have said it, I maintain it today, that I think going forward, the leadership of the party must be anxious about our primaries. I've always cited the case about what is the name again? The chairman for finance committee. It's not just because he's my friend or something. I know his input. When we go to the finance committees, and I'm not a finance man, most of us are in finance. Of course, we understand the rudiments of what goes in there, but we're not finance person. We would always find out from him. Have you exhausted the document? You and this and that. He sits down to next morning. And remember, apart from the laws that we pass here, quite a lot of what we do here is it's finance. The budget, the word. But it's all about finance. You know, I think that if there was a means of handling it. And probably it isn't the case of if there was. I do know that there could have been means of finding a solution to that. If the executive, you see, and remember, this thing is not the constituency party, the general party as such. It's always the delegates. I mean, you have problems. You cannot claim that. Take my case, for example. I've been there for the length of time that I've been there. I must have stepped on one or two toes, very badly, and bruised them. They bear you grudge. But the community, they will be happy for you to go again. There's a particular place in my constituency. I think I had 3 or so of the 10 executives. The 3 or so voted for me. But go and see the jubilation in the town. Why were you people ganging up to remove our kitchen? I mean, there was so much excitement that I won. Now, this happens all over the place. 600 people, 500, and you're talking about a population of several thousands, tens of thousands who would have been prepared to vote for the person. But if you so our college system, which is the delegate system, I think going forward, the party would have a look. I think we would need to discuss these matters. I am not happy. I mean, look at the names. Abdullah, whatever. Mention their names, ministers, deputy ministers, chairman of whatever. And that's not to denigrate those who had won. I don't know them. They would have to come in here. Quite a few, 1 or 2 people I know their names. I know them by face. I don't know the rest of them. And that's not to say that if the big boys aren't there. And I always call them big boys. If they aren't there, Parliament will collapse. But you see, you need institutional memory. I keep talking about it. I mean, can you discuss energy matters in this country without talking about KTM? I mean, that's simply because from 2001, January up to now, that has been my 40. The oil, who can describe anything about the oil fund in this Ghana but myself? The ITLOS one to Germany and all that, who understands that? Everybody knows little bits and pieces of what happened. Who knows the foundation, what happened? How did it come about that we went to Germany? Who knows about that but myself? Who knows how it came about that Cosmos came to find oil here? Who knows that the NDC, when they came in 2009, arrested me? They were going to prosecute me. They said I'd caused, financial loss to the tune of 5 billion. Is there? The letters are there. Who knows these things? People talk about Dreship. Who knows the genesis of Dreship? See, so you have people with institutional memory. You need them. I mean, you cast all of them, everybody, 42, you think it's easy job. I'm not a happy man to start with. So when I start talking about specific issues, people might misunderstand me. But you see, if you talk about the law, I don't know about the issues. I don't know about the specific issues. I don't know about the constituencies. I'm told one is Subing. Is that Subing? And then which other one? There are 2, I'm told. Yeah, Subing. They say they are my friends. You see, so I don't want to get involved with this. But if you're talking legally, I think the party executive should look at the legal. MPP, we're the party of rule of law. So anything touching on the law and order, the law, I am particularly anxious. So we should be careful how we handle these matters. Monetization, obviously, it's an issue. But we also talk about commitment. Why would anybody, if they are so committed, take money and vote against the person who normally they would have voted for? It's a double-sided kind of edge, double-sided sword, kind of. We should be careful. Yes, those who pay the money, but those who also accept the money. I mean, what does it say about this whole business? Yes, monetization, you pay so much money to talk about, you're going crazy. But I mean, I had a situation where they are telling me, we would vote for you. When we finish, whatever you want to do for us, do for us. We would vote for you. Let whoever bring their money. Some of them said they'll collect it. Others said they would not collect it. We should start the debate. We should start it all again. Whether there should be a law or whatever. I know about many jurisdictions where it's a criminal matter. It is a criminal matter. There was a minister who actually won his seat. All that he had done was to go on the campaign trail at the time of the election and suggested that they were going to do this and this and this and that for the particular community, not in this country. When he won, they went to court. His win was nullified because he had breached the campaign, the law, because he had promised A, B, C, D. It was against the law. You cannot give 1 cent to anybody. I mean, if it came to Ghana, all of us would be disqualified. I think it's about time that we looked at it, whether there must be some legislation to that effect, to make sure that money does not undermine, does not undercut our democracy. Because, I mean, what do we do? I mean, you want to pay 1,000 cedis, he wants to pay 2,000. And the 2,000, well, somebody comes to tell them, look, if you pay 3,000, you will win. I mean, what kind of all this, and then it snowballs.
It's inspiration. It's the word. The teachings.
When is your time? When is your season? When is your turn? No amount of lies, no amount of liars, political liars, financial liars, family liars, hatred or spiritual liars, no amount of it can stop you.
Tune in to Voice of Inspiration with Archbishop Nicholas Duncan Williams every Sunday at 6:30 p.m. on Citi TV.
Hello and welcome back. This is Duke's View. This week has been quite eventful in Parliament. Eventful in the sense that we've had some members of Parliament who went for their primaries come back to the House with no expectation that they will be holding on to their seats going into the next election, which is in some 5 to 6 months. Now, this has generated relevant discussion about whether indeed the structure of our politics should remain the same in terms of the election or the selection of members of Parliament. Now, to have 40 members of Parliament or more than that lose their seats and not coming back, as a matter of course, will affect the institutional memory of Parliament. But some also make the argument that even though it will affect the institutional memory of Parliament, democracy is meant to, as it were, gather and allow for everybody to have an expression of their ambitions, which is essentially what politics is about, an expression of their ambitions and that of their ideas. It's a contest of ideas. So if the political parties do not find a fair balance between having grassroots participation to get people that they really want to be there selected, while at the same time having experienced hands managed to be kept in the House, or have experienced hands being managed to be kept in the House to do the work as expected of them, Parliament will end up losing. Another issue has also got to do with the Supreme Court ruling which came this week. Now, that was a direct offshoot of the CI 126, which was passed by Parliament a couple of weeks ago, which makes the passport and the Ghana card as breeder documents or source documents for getting persons who are 18 and above registered onto the new electoral management system that the Electoral Commission wants to roll out for the 2016 elections. There have been so many arguments, from procurement to cost to even the kind of technology that would even be needed at this point in time for our elections. Bottom line, the Supreme Court has granted the reliefs. It is going to go ahead. The Electoral Commission from this week would start, Tuesday as a matter of fact, will start compiling names of persons under, very novel circumstances because of the era in which we are in, the COVID-19 era. That is good for our democracy. But if you look at the various divisions that have characterized the selection or the decision to go by this new voters register, it's obvious that there are some fragments on the political front from the various political parties. The strength of our elections going into 2016 will be based on how well the Electoral Management Body and other state agencies are able to collaborate to ensure that all parties are at them on the same level, on the same platform, to ensure that there's a certain understanding amongst them going into the election, so that the outcome of the election will be acceptable, fair and balanced, and something that will be accepted by everybody. From now till December, Parliament, as it is always the case for the past 7-10 years of the life of this Parliament since 1993, will be saddled with preparing the country for the end of this tenure of Parliament, this tenure of government, which ends effectively January 8th. That is depending on how the election goes. So the point to be made here is that even though there were disagreements with the voters register as to whether I should go on or not, that matter has been settled. The groups that are involved, the political parties, the political actors, and the state institutions, there must be collaboration so that going into the election, all parties will be on the same level playing field, to ensure that the peace and stability and tranquility of this country would be maintained. Because without that peace and without that tranquility, the development which we are taking strides at will not occur or will not happen in this country. And that's my view for the week. So that's how we wrap up today's edition of the Chamber right here on Citi TV. Of course, next week will be very, very interesting. There will be monitoring of the registration going on. Most members of Parliament, as we speak, are in their constituencies to monitor how things will go. Because of that, the House may even begin sitting on the third day of sitting instead of the second day of sitting. But all in all, we'll be around here in Parliament to serve you the very best of all you need to know. Keep watching Citi TV. See you same time next week.
Comprehensive news. Your Citi newsroom at 8 p.m. on Citi TV is your most engaging news bulletin on TV.
It's a very that's too bad. The youth are still throwing stones. They are still throwing stones here into our direction.